morning. We actually have a substitute speaker today, Jessica Miller-Merrell from Workology.
Yep.
Saudi had a work conflict and just couldn't make it today, unfortunately. So the topic for our fireside chat this morning is the massive shift from automation to productivity and enabling business operations through HR and technology. And we have two excellent panelists with us today, Jessica Miller-Merrell and Jonathan Meyers from Mars. So let's start with Jonathan. Why don't you take just a minute and introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, thank you, and it's great to be here. It's very, very bright, so if I'm squinting, that's the reason why. But I've been with Mars for 14 years now, and I lead all the work we're doing from a technology strategy standpoint in our global rewards function. So everything to do with compensation, health and well-being, global mobility. I've met so many interesting people at this conference, so thank you for your time and the conversations. I've had a few people ask me, Mars, like, what? You know, the planet, Mars bar. So I just wanted to just let you guys know that I do work for Mars, obviously. We're a family-owned company. We've been that way for over 100 years. We are privately owned. Being private gives us the freedom to really look to the long term in terms of how are we going to make investments with our business, with the people, and with our planet. And we're very much a principle-driven company. We've got what we call our 5 principles. And probably the most recent really shining example of that is the $1 billion that we pledged to fight climate change and drive sustainability. So I do love this organization. It's really cool, and happy to be here. Yeah.
Jessica?
Hello again. I own a online media company called Workology, and so I can consider myself sort of an anthropologist of human resources. I finally put my arts and liberal arts degree to use, so to speak, and found my home in human resources. I'm a former practitioner that started a blog in 2005 that became a business. And so my focus is on providing resources and arming HR and recruiting leaders with information. We do that through Workology. We reach 500,000 people every month through our newsletter, content online, and then 2 podcasts that we operate that are weekly. And then in the consultancy side of business, I love technology. It's probably because I didn't have any technology when I was a kid. My parents were hippies, and so they were very technology averse. We had one television in the whole house, and while I took computer programming and things when I was a kid, we didn't have a computer. I got a word processor, that was about it. So the fact that I didn't have it sort of forced me to be curious and love it even more. So my focus is really on recruiting and HR technology and how it's being applied, and focusing on like productivity and optimization in the consulting side of the business.
Great. So I'm going to ask a number of questions, and I'll ask the same question for each of you. And we'll start with Jonathan. So one of the initial names of HR system was to automate paper-based processes. However, there's now an emphasis not just on automating specific tasks, but on increasing productivity in the organization by helping individuals and teams work more efficient. So the question is, how do you define productivity, and what have you done in your organization to focus on productivity?
Okay, so productivity to me has always been a mix of efficiency and effectiveness. Fit for purpose, right? A fit for purpose output to a given process or a task or an activity at work. So very much the effectiveness divided by the total costs of actually doing something, of doing that functional activity, the efficiency. And over the last, I've been in this space for 5 years in the HR tech space. Prior to that, in the sales technology space, focused on customer and consumer solutions. But as we've heard at this conference, and as I think is becoming more and more apparent, everything's sort of bleeding together. We just heard a really good presentation on that user experience, and whether it's consumer, customer, HR, the way that I viewed it is all these things have sort of bled together. And from a productivity standpoint, we've done some interesting things over the last 5 years at Mars to really increase productivity within our workforce. So 5 years ago, we made a decision to transform our HR function. That included new technology, new processes, standardizing things at a global level from a policy and process standpoint, setting up HR shared service centers, and we've built a solution, an HR self-service portal on the Salesforce platform. Actually, just this year, 4 years later, took quite a bit to get the business case and get the program going, get the funding, but we just completed that activity in August this year, our final wave. So we've got service centers in each of the big regions of the world. We've got an HR self-service portal, as I mentioned, running on Salesforce. Case management for all the intake in our service centers for 60,000 people around the world, that's coming through Salesforce. How we're managing the HR knowledge, that's living in Salesforce as well. So we feel like we've taken a big stride towards really transforming the HR function, allowing our line managers and our associates to do what they do best, which is focus on everything else but HR. So we've given them the tools and the improved processes to just try to make their lives really simple and easy. And that was certainly one of the guiding principles from a tech perspective going into this program, is just that user experience, the simplicity, and the productivity that brings. There's other examples, though. I mean, that's a big example. There are small examples where, and just, through conversations at work, and, we're a big organization. We've got lots of pockets of activity. And, something we did this year was something really simple. We changed a role in Salesforce to make it global for a certain set of our rewards population to be able to see the cases across the world, because they sit in global roles. But, the way we've organized ourselves from a functional perspective across HR is we've got regional service centers, which when we started this program meant, regional access to the case management tool. Because you're sitting in Chicago and you're servicing the Western Hemisphere. You don't necessarily need to look at a case that has been submitted in Russia or elsewhere. So, I guess, a lesson that I've learned over the years is there's the really big stuff that we go after to drive productivity, but then there are just really small, simple things. Another small, simple thing is, we're about to enter our annual merit cycle, where, we go through the salary review and, issuing bonus payments and things like that. We've done something simple, like, we've refreshed the calendar that we share across our HR community with our business partners to make it easier for them to understand. And we feel that that's helping make them more productive because, they know where to go to get the information. They know exactly what's taking place at the right time. Other things we're doing to drive productivity are just, a real, and I say it's a never-ending effort in a company as big as Mars, right? We're 125,000 people. We're in 80 countries. We're definitely on a growth trajectory. And, we're constantly looking for ways to drive efficiency, and productivity by, simplifying how we do things. We're running our core SAP system. It's an on-premise SAP system. That's our core HR system of record. All our associates are in that environment. And, it's on-premise, right? I think most of the organizations here are probably in the cloud. We're in the cloud with Salesforce, of course. We're in the cloud with SuccessFactors for learning, talent management, compensation, performance management, succession planning. But, being a company that, has been classically very locally managed and autonomous in the regions, that opportunity to bring standardization of process and policy, it just seems like every time you peel back a layer of the onion, there's more opportunity. So we're continuing to do that. We're doing it within rewards to really try to figure out, how do we bring value? How do we make our rewards function more productive? How do we make our line managers more productive? How do we make it easier for them to understand what we're offering from a total rewards package? How is it easier for them to find information and really do what we want them to do, which is help grow our business, manage their teams, and not get bogged down in trying to figure out this or that from an HR or a rewards perspective. So that's sort of just a little bit on productivity.
Okay. Great start. Jessica, same question for you. How do you define productivity, and what have you done to focus on productivity?
So I'm not a large 100,000 person corporation. I'm an entrepreneur with a small team. I define productivity in doing more with less and meeting acceptable performance levels. So one of the reasons I love being an entrepreneur is I can get away with a lot more than you guys, unfortunately. And so I'm always trying new things or new strategies to see if we can up our productivity game. And I'd like to think that my team of 6 operates at least at 12 or 20 people, really. We're very streamlined in the work that we do and how we're organized. Everyone, aside from 2 people, plus me, is remote. And I have a global team that works in different places. And so we communicate over Zoom and Slack primarily. I spend a lot of time looking at our day. And so my lead for the team, she is constantly delegating non-important or time-sensitive tasks to other people. And so I just got through spending 2 weeks looking at my schedule and saying, okay, what are the things that I don't have to do? I like doing because I like get caught up. When I first started, I am self-taught in marketing. I'm not a marketer by trade. I'm an HR person. That's my background in human resources. And didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I started a blog to build a pipeline for my organization, and it started working. And they were changing headcounts for the division that I supported, which was inside and outside sales and the supporting functions. And I just wanted to find a way, because I was tired of being on those weekly calls where I had to tell my boss and 15 other people about why I wasn't hiring when they just shifted 250 people over to me 3 days ago. Like, the expectation was that I just going to pull it out and I'm going to fill 250 roles. So that's why I started the blog. I wanted to just have a funnel. And I was able to make, when they would shift those 250 positions in for the quarter, I was able to make 75 to 150 offers within that same day. So just like I operated in the high volume retail space, which is my background in HR, I kind of treated it the same way. I needed to create a funnel. I knew what my ratios were and how I needed to operate. So when I look at my job now and the work that we do, I'm constantly evaluating our performance, and then who can I send these things to? So I spend a lot of time in the weeds. I've always been a challenge for me. So this last 18 months, I've really focused on making goals and priorities for myself every morning. And that's the small things, I think, that really make a difference, and then other people on my team are following suit. So I don't actually look at my electronic devices for the first 45 minutes to the hour of your day. Does anybody else do that? It's really amazing. And so what I do is I make my list of things that I need to do. I kind of enjoy my coffee, think about the day a little bit, write down my 3 most important priorities that I want to get done, and then I do those. I don't look at my phone or my watch. Those things are shut off. And then I've already got the 3 most important things that I want to do for myself before I get caught up in all the stuff that's in my email and in my LinkedIn and my Facebook and all those other places. And that has been a game changer for me in how I manage myself and how I manage my team. Because I look at my 25 long to-do list, and it's overwhelming. So I just start with the 3 most important things. And then the rest of the day is kind of for the team, but then I will organize my tasks. And so my team does the exact same thing. We are a little bit, we don't yet use a performance a product management tool for productivity. We work in Google Docs. And so each individual team member has a Google Doc with their targets and goals and tasks for that week. And then we check in. My lead checks in every day with everyone, and then gets on the phone or WhatsApp with them at least 1 or 2 times a week to see what they're doing. But I feel like that has been really phenomenal for us. What I would say, and when I work with clients in the HR, the recruiting space, the first thing that we do is we do an audit to see what's happening. Where are you spending your time? Where are the problem areas? And then I also take a look at your tech stack, and we say, okay, you're doing these things. And that has been really effective for a number of clients. I think a lot of times productivity kind of reminds me, like my work kind of reminds me of my closet. I don't know about you guys, but normally my closet's a disaster. Like, stuff's on the floor, shoes are everywhere. I can't find that one shirt that I always wear. That's my favorite, like your favorite jacket, because it's stuffed in the corner somewhere. It's really hard you spend all this time looking for this jacket, and you're wasting time, and you're not being productive. But what you really need to do in order to be productive is organize everything by color, size, purge, do all those things. It's really hard because you're in the weeds. You just need to find that jacket. So you need to have somebody come in and do kind of this 20,000 foot view to assess things, and then they can come in and you can pick one item that's going to free you up a little bit, right? So maybe I just organize my shoes, let's just say. So then I will be able to cut some time down into my workday or your workday. So for you guys, it might be a chatbot, like a frequently asked questions chatbot that's on your site. It doesn't make a huge impact for your team, but it might free up 12 hours a month, which is huge because you start to feel a little bit better, just like your closet, and then you're willing to tackle those other areas. And then you can be a little bit more strategic in how you divide up my time. So that's my perspective, but I always like to try crazy stuff that other industries are doing, or weird random productivity hacks or technology tools, and try to figure out how they can use them in mine. Because that guy with the bicycle, that's how I operate. Like, I want to do that all the time because it gives me a competitive advantage in my business as an entrepreneur. The only way that I can be effective and operate and grow is if I'm that crazy person who does things differently. That means that I'm going to fail a lot, try to make time for the failures, but every now and then, maybe 1 in 10, I'll win, and I'll win big, and then it really makes an impact in the work that I do for our business and then the clients that we support.
Excellent, thank you. So you mentioned that your team, there's a lot of remote workers. That kind of gets us to our next question. So the latest advances in technology are enabling new modes of working, including smart work, telework, remote work, agile working. How do you see this changing work, and what benefits both organizationally and individually have been realized?
So I am not just a regular entrepreneur, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I moved to Austin about 2.5 years ago, and I thought it would be fun to start a second business with a friend of mine because I'm crazy and a glutton for punishment. And so we started a co-working space. And so we have 12,000 square feet in Austin, Texas in the north side. And we have offices, event space, co-working for all those things. And we have about 100 members over there. And it's been really great because I have been working remote in my house for really the last 8 years since I went full-time into my business. And so we have people from all over working for startups and small businesses, but then large companies like GoDaddy and Oracle and different organizations that are working in our offices. So all of them, many of them are mostly remote, or maybe they're just the Austin team. There's 3 of them. They're supporting the office in San Francisco or New York and other places. So I definitely see this trend continuing, especially with the fact that we're mostly at capacity. I could use 7 or 8 more coworkers, but all our offices are rented out. And Austin is such a hot place for co-working spaces. There's actually over 65 co-working spaces in Austin, and then we have ours too. And that's even with WeWork and all the fun stuff that's going on with that. I can't wait for that to really catch up with them, and then we're gonna be really at capacity, and I don't know what we'll do, but it's been fun to watch because we're, again, a small startup who's operating very, very lean. But also my team operates mostly remote. And so I have people in different time zones. And so I cater to the people. That means sometimes I get up at 11 o'clock at night. You guys probably do this too, to get on a call. And so we use Zoom a lot for our calls. We use Slack. And then I have some members in Venezuela, and we have somebody in Nigeria. They're not really excited about always being on Slack, so we've had to go where they are. So we have a WhatsApp group that we use to communicate with one another, and that's been really effective for like quick check-ins and things. Initially, everybody wanted to talk on Skype or Facebook, and I'm trying to do my best to be productive, but separate my personal from my work life in some form, and that's really hard because you see me on Facebook Lives. I'm a very visible person in the influencer space in HR, and so I do talk a lot about personal things, and I use my social media differently than most people, but I do like to have some separation between the two. And so Messenger is kind of meant for people that I really know, or family and friends. And so Skype and Messenger were overwhelming me because I use those that way. So we just picked a schedule. I try to check in with people over video maybe 3 times a month. Everything else, we have really focused video tutorials and PDFs that tell people how to do certain things. So if they have a question, they can reference back. But I do like Slack because it's just a quick update. It doesn't clog up my email. And then we use Zoom for the more in-depth conversations to get to know people.
Great. So Jonathan, same question to you. So how do you see these kind of changing work models working at Mars, and what benefits do you see?
So, I mean, building on everything that you've shared, I mean, you know, I'm part of a very global team. We've got literally people everywhere. The day never seems to end, you know, most days of the week. And, you know, because of the growing global nature of at least what we do in the Global Rewards organization is, you know, there's definitely the flexibility, and it's not just within rewards, but we're seeing it across the business where I think an example for me is, you know, I'll have a few days a week, 6 a.m. conference calls, 7 a.m. conference calls. We've got that flexibility where, you know, I'm at home. I don't want to get to the office by 6 a.m. if I don't have to. But I'm at home, I do a couple of calls, I'm able to take my son to school, then go back home and work or head down to the office. So I think, you know, there's definitely a mindset change in that flexibility where I'm seeing more and more, at least with our office worker population, that, you know, there's not an expectation that you're in the office every day. There's an expectation that you're doing great work and you're getting the work done and you're collaborating with your colleagues around the world. But, you know, those days of being in the office, you know, Monday through Friday, I've definitely seen that change, and I've experienced it personally. And I think that's, you know, going back to our first question, that's definitely improved my productivity. And a number of my colleagues that I talk to, it's that, you know, I'm based out of Chicago, you know, some people commute 90 minutes each way to the office, and, you know, they're getting back 3 hours of their day. So better work-life balance. We're making a big push with health and well-being across Mars. So, I mean, certainly there's, you know, a contribution to the well-being of our associates with having that flexibility. Another thing I wanted to mention is what I find really unique the last few years at Mars is not just a new mode of working, but I guess it is a new mode, but it's a new approach to working. So we've very much embraced design thinking as an organization. We've trained up, I think probably all of IT has gone through some sort of design thinking training. That's expanded out into the business as well. So there are thousands of associates that have learned the principles of design thinking. And, you know, sort of the mindset that we have right now is, let's go find the problems that we need to solve within our business by using different design thinking tools. You know, let's use analytics, let's use artificial intelligence to, you know, figure out how do we solve those things? How do we solve those business problems? And then let's bring in automation on the back end of it to figure out how do we scale these things across the world of Mars. So, you know, for me, that is just such a shift in how we're operating as a company. And it's produced some, you know, really cool results across the business in the reward space. We kicked off this year with a big summit focused on data quality in the HR space, and we applied a number of design thinking tools. And, you know, I'll be honest, I went into that session and, you know, design thinking is it just another buzz thing? Is it really going to yield the results? But, you know, I sort of committed to the process. We went through it, and it produced some tremendous results that, you know, have, you know, manifested, you know, into a number of different projects to go after, you know, some of our processes that need improvement, you know, and improving data quality as well. So it's been really cool to just sort of be a part of that journey, which we see the payoff already. So it's pretty cool.
Great. So, and this next question will start with you, John. So Jessica mentioned the use of Zoom and Slack for communications. So we see employees, especially the younger employees that are entering the workforce, using different devices and technologies to communicate beyond email. And so we had a conversation last night at the tavern about the use of email and how it's seen by some of the younger generation is the same level as snail mail or rotary phones. You just don't use email to communicate anymore. So with these new technologies, how do you see them being adopted in your organization, and what's the impact on the organization?
Okay, so I'll start with email. So when we set off on our journey to transform HR, you know, you do probably what a lot of you have done. You have the conversation, all right, so we're setting up shared services for HR. How will our population engage with HR? You know, will it be via email, phone call, et cetera? So we made a decision at the beginning that there's no email. We're cutting email. That's not something we want to support. We support web chats, we support phone calls, and we support portal requests. So email was not selected because we wanted to drive people to that self-service environment. And with 60,000 people using our portal, we process thousands and thousands of cases a year, as you might imagine, and email just doesn't exist. And people would ask, well, why can't we use email? And we'd provide that context that this is going to improve how you are productive in what you do. Going to the portal, seeing the history of everything that you've submitted, where something submitted via email could get lost. You don't know if you sent the email, you don't know where it landed, it bounces around from one person to another. So that's the email example. We're a big user of Teams, so we've deployed Microsoft Teams this year. I think a couple weeks ago there was a notice internally that we've hit 10,000 active users. For some of the projects that I'm leading, we're actively setting up teams, and we're directing the project team to let's use that channel. Let's try it. Let's not email each other about this or that, or this activity in the project, or the meeting next week. Let's try to do it through Teams and see if it makes a difference. So it's a bit of an experiment, but Teams seems to really be growing at Mars. So far, there's a lot of really positive feedback. Yammer is something that we use really widespread as well, and there's Yammer groups for all sorts of things. I feel like every week there's a new Yammer group. I just found a Yammer group the other day on our employer value propositions. So we're seeing Yammer as a great way to connect people that have interests. And with this example of the employer value proposition, there's a group out there, as I mentioned, but there was also that offer to, you want to join the monthly call and talk about employee value proposition, please join us. So I thought that was pretty unique. Video, of course, Skype video, we're heavy users of that. We use Salesforce Chatter within our HR shared service centers so that our teams in those service centers can collaborate on cases, collaborate in context of what's happening in a particular case. And one of the things we've done over the past few years is a tool called Edcast for learning and development, which is sort of that really cool YouTube-like experience, which I really like because every week I'm getting suggestions based on my interests for do I want to learn more about data privacy? And I'm sort of being presented with, here are 5 online courses that you could take or videos that you could watch. So I found that to be something that helps with my productivity because I'm not out there searching for these things. They're just sort of landing in my inbox, in my email inbox. So back to email.
Great, thank you for that. So Jessica, you've already talked about the use of Zoom and Slack. Mm-hmm. So how do you see the use in your organization between those and email?
I despise email. It is the bane of my existence, and I have a VA who all she does is read my email. And that is mostly because, and I'm thankful for this and my blog and the opportunities that it's brought in with the website and the community that we have, but I get PR pitches. I had 3 people want to sell me articles they want to post on my website. They're clogging up. They want to pay me $75 for today, some offshore company trying to buy links. They clog up my email. I get over 200 to 500 messages a day like that, and I miss out on the really good stuff, right? So I miss client messages or somebody who's a subscriber for our newsletter that has a question or is looking for resources. And so I have somebody in there 20 hours a week. They're just responding to email, going through and managing requests for me. And then I use Zapier quite a bit for different automation. So like if a client messages me and I want to make sure that's a priority, I get a text message, which is super helpful so that I know it doesn't get lost. Like a client has an urgent request. I have an engagement with a credit union right now, so I'm doing some work with them on recruitment marketing and rewriting some processes for them, and I want to make sure that they're my top priority, but I don't want to lose. I just want to make sure that the engagement is there, because with the work that I do, it's all about relationships and engagement. So Zapier is helpful to do all sorts of really amazing things for us. So like when a new co-working person member signs up for the co-working space, their information gets zapped over to MailChimp, and then there's an 8-email automation sequence that basically onboards them as a new member of the co-working space. So I'm all about anything that's going to save me time. It meets the levels of engagement. They're happy they're getting the information that they need served up to them, but I don't have to sit there and press send, right? Or ask my team to be able to do that. As far as other pieces of technology that I really like, we have a learning management system within the website where members can take classes and listen to podcasts and webcasts and various things, and we have a chat bot within that so that they can message somebody in real time. I also have one on the co-working space, and it's amazing. It is actually me if you go in, or my assistant who will go in there and respond, but my little head pops up. We use a free tool called Drift. It's not free once you get to a certain level, but we've closed deals that were pretty substantial and really build a relationship, because it's all about speed of service and that engagement level. I think that's really important. I want to be able to scale me and the work that we do with the two businesses that we have. As far as HR professionals, I think that, again, chatbots are really amazing for that. You were talking about design thinking earlier. I think sitting down with your team and using some of the design thinking framework is a really great way for you to identify challenges, because part of design thinking is empathizing with your end user, which for you guys is the employee and sometimes the manager. And so putting yourself in their shoes and saying, like, what are the biggest challenges for them? And it could be responsiveness, or getting information quickly and as fast as they need, because as we saw from Joe, the expectation is that we want consumer experiences inside of our workplaces. And so I don't know how many of you have ever made a return on Amazon, but you talk to a bot inside the mobile app, and they qualify you for 5 or 6 messages until they say, oh yes, your purchase meets that qualification, and then you go to a real person. So I think there's a lot of cool technology that we can employ that consumers are willing to understand that, you know, we're gonna maybe not talk to a real person for a bit, but it'll get escalated. And I've done some work with thru in a study earlier this year where we asked job seekers in a lot of high volume areas, retail, call center, and then restaurant, and we said, would you talk to a chatbot on a career site? And overwhelmingly their response was yes. But it came with a but, which was, yes, we will talk to them, but we do want to talk to a real person and get an update at some point, because we feel like our resume is going into a black hole. So I think there's some things that we can do to kind of creative experience, free ourselves up so that we can see and sort of be strategic in our decision making. But we just need time to breathe. I think that's the main thing. We're all kind of in the hamster wheel of work, and we just need one little thing to free us up a little bit so that we can get our heads above water and then really be a strategic business partner in the HR function.
Great. So you mentioned the use of cool technologies. So there's these emerging technologies such as chatbots, which you've talked about a little bit, robotic process automation, and one of the big topics is artificial intelligence. So how do you see these emerging technologies impacting your business and your workforce?
I just want it to make me scalable and my team scalable so that we can do more things. I think that's probably the reason that we're here, right? Like, one of the things that is sort of depressing, but I think it's important to remind ourselves, is that we're in this crazy great economy right now, and our teams, whether we like it or not, are at the highest headcounts that we are probably going to experience going forward. So as the economy shifts, our headcounts are going to shrink. So out of imperative, business parity, we need to, I'm trying to be realistic, I'm normally a half glass full kind of person, not empty, but I think it's important for us to remember that this is the biggest headcounts that we're probably going to have, so we need to start using that time to really be strategic with AI tools, automation, and chatbots and different things. So, excuse me, I think the first and most important thing is sit down with your team, talk to your employees, like, where is your team spending the most time? Is it in email? Can you look at some technologies to help take a little bit of that workload off of? Is it sourcing? Is that taking a lot of time in your recruiting function? Well, maybe you can utilize some of this sourcing matching AI technology that goes out into the web or within your own applicant tracking system and matches people for you. I think that you just have to think about what are the biggest pain points for your department, but also what are the biggest wins that you can get to be able to sit down with your leaders and say, hey, we did this, it's gonna cost this, it's gonna bring us this value, and then they're gonna say, oh my gosh, you're changing our business, or you're making our lives so much better, not just HR's. Here is, I wanna hear more from what you're doing. I think if you become and work to become the AI expert within your organization, everybody is gonna come to you, because they're gonna want to know what's new and cool. And really, it's very simple. Sign up for a free class at Stanford or MIT, read a few books. There's some good courses that are out there on artificial intelligence for HR. Ben has a great book that you should also check out. Immerse yourself for a period of maybe 4 or 5 months in understanding artificial intelligence, right? And then start doing demos. And you just need to pick highest priority areas, maybe like 4 within your business function, but you need to commit to 2 demos a week. 2 demos a week, you can get through 8 a month, and in a span of 6 months, you'll have almost talked to 50 products, right? That's suddenly you are the knowledge expert, or somebody on your team is, within your function, and everybody's going to be coming to you. You have more information and resources on this topic, and now you're in all the meetings talking about AI, because there's AI for sales, there's AI for logistics, right? There's AI for IT. But you will be the subject matter expert, and you'll be in all those conversations. As HR people, we're seeing the big picture of the human side, and since artificial intelligence is going to impact our workforces, HR needs to position itself strategically in these conversations. Otherwise, there's a group of folks in a boardroom who are going to be making decisions on how the workforce is upskilled. They're not thinking about the ramifications of this piece of tech, because we're thinking not only about the AI side, but how do we train these people for new jobs? I have a 10-year-old daughter. I have no idea. We have no idea what the workforce is going to look like, what kind of skills are going to be needed, but I'm just going to try to give her the most foundational information. She needs to be flexible and creative and kind of go with the flow, because that's the new workforce that we're all working in. So whatever the tech you decide to use, I think that my suggestion to you is just go demo a bunch of stuff, read a bunch of books, immerse yourself in this, and everybody's going to be seeking you out because you are the expert in your organization. And then you can really be more strategic in how the division of labor and that training and retraining that's going to be happening for your organization.
Great advice. So we got just a few minutes left. So Jonathan, so how is Mars leveraging these emerging technologies?
Yeah, and to build on what was shared, I think what's really important for myself and my team is, looking outside and looking inside. So, you touched upon, like logistics, AI, supply side AI, sales, et cetera. So what we're doing is, we're looking across our business, right, to see, are there any great ideas that I could steal and bring back to the HR function? So definitely looking within, because we are doing a lot with machine learning and AI, as I mentioned earlier, but then also looking outside, whether it's coming to a conference like this, whether it's reading white papers, whether it's meeting with vendors and understanding, in the HR space, what's happening. But what we're really trying to do is look outside, look at HR, and also look at other, functional areas to see, hey, they're doing this with machine learning. Couldn't we apply that back to the rewards processes that, we're trying to optimize? And then the same thing looking internally and connecting with those teams across our organization where, it may not sound logical. Well, we're doing stuff on this, trade side with AI. Why do you want to talk to us? And then explaining, well, you guys have a great idea. You've actually done it. You have an approach. We can learn from you. And yes, I work in a different function, but you're going to help accelerate what we want to do and the problem we want to solve. It's going to go that much faster. So there's a lot of collaboration across teams right now, which is really cool to see, really inspiring. And we do believe that's going to pay off, in terms of improving some of the things that we're trying to improve within the HR and rewards function.
Great insight. We have about 30 seconds left. I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. Anybody like to ask any questions to our panelists? We've got a question over here.
Oh, Jonathan, I have a question for you. You mentioned that your department went through this HR transformation, and it sounded like it took about 4 years to get where you are right now, and it sounds like it was mostly due to budget. Do you have any other ideas what could accelerate that transformation, taking the budget kind of aside?
Well, I mean, I think there, with any big organization, it takes time to get these big programs approved. But because we were changing process, we were going after the standardization, we were introducing new technology with Salesforce and SuccessFactors, and we were standing up new HR shared service centers. So there was certainly a large organizational impact in terms of how we did business as an HR function. So we tried to compress it. I think looking back, what I would do differently is really push harder from a tech perspective specifically on a true configuration first mindset. And really challenge, I guess, a lot more strongly in terms of, when I worked on IT back then, I wasn't on the HR side, but partnering more closely with my counterparts in HR to challenge, is that really a truly global standard? And you're talking about changing the technology to meet a local requirement. Is there really a local requirement there? Could we look at this a different way? So I think spending more time in aligning with, my partners on the HR side back then in terms of, what's global versus what's local versus where do we need to step out from a process, because then we're designing something different and we're building something different, perhaps on the tech side. And, that was a challenge. So looking back, a stronger push to even further standardize and simplify our processes is something, if I could do it over, I would have liked to address that.
Great, thank you. Looks like we're out of time, a little bit over time. So please join me in thanking our two panelists, Jonathan and Jessica.